Hey guys, Dusty here. It's that time again where I break down my last week's triathlon training on Training Peaks. Last week for me was an okay week. I wasn't able to get a long ride in and I did miss a few other sessions due to some low energy levels. But for the most part it was a success. My week was certainly lower in terms of overall volume. I only put in 13 and a half hours and that broke down into just over 5 hours of swimming, 5.5 hours of riding, and just under 3 hours of running, including my whole week wrapped up with a race on Sunday, which was a 15K road race. So without any further ado, let's break down last week's training. Alright, so here's last week's schedule. We'll start off with Monday. Last week I was really consistent with my swimming. Started off in the pool with a set that I like to call Move the 25s, and essentially it's 2 rounds of 7 by 100, and each 100 has either an all-out 25 or an all-out 50. So the efforts are really polarizing. You're either going really easy or really hard. So that was about an hour swim and 3K worth of work. Later on that morning, I believe, after a little bit of work, I hopped on the bike and I did 10 by 3 minutes at 300 watts. I haven't been riding very much this year and I'm trying to get consistent and get back into the flow of things on the bike. And 10 by 3 minutes is a great place to start. Not a super hard workout for me, but just introducing some efforts back into the legs again. After lunch and a bit of a break, I had a training partner, Dan, come over and we did 8K in the hills. Overall, it was pretty easy effort, heart rate average of only 139, but definitely a solid strength workout. We got in 837 feet of climbing in only 37 minutes. Alright, moving on to Tuesday. Tuesday was another good swim in the pool. Dan and I, again, we did a 4K swim in about an hour and 10, hour and 15. And it was a main set of 6 times 4 by 100. And each of those 4 by 100 were descending rest intervals. So a really hard, thresholdy type workout and a great one to get done early in the week. After a bit of a rest, we headed to the track and we did a main set of 5 by 2K. So this workout was 2 kilometer intervals coming in at about 3:20 to 3:30 with about 1 minute rest in between each of the 2 kilometers. Add it all up and it was 10K worth of work in under 35 minutes. And again, another solid session to have in the bank. This workout isn't too difficult for me and that's good. That's what I'm going for right now. I just want workouts that are repeatable and something that will allow me to be consistent time and time again. I'm not going out day after day just trying to bury myself with, crazy hard workouts. So ultimately, end of the day, I'm happy to get a workout like this done. And yes, in the future, in coming months, they'll get a lot harder than this. But overall, a great session to have done, especially 5 days before a big 15K race. All right, moving on to Wednesday in the pool. Needed a bit of a recovery swim, so we did again 3K in about an hour, and we did a main set of 10 by 150, just kind of easy cruise pace, and then we did 8 by 75 meters with pull buoy and band tied around our ankles. We did a little bit of stroke counting work during those 75s, and all in all it was a great recovery swim. Later on Wednesday, I just hopped on the bike for an easy hour and 10 minutes, and I believe this day, originally I was going to do a 2 to 2.5 hour sweet spot session on the bike, but I was starting to get quite tired. So in my opinion, I did the right thing and I cut the sweet spot training and decided to just ride easy, and I'm glad I did. Alright, now we move on to Thursday. Thursday was a really great swim in the pool. Dan and I were swimming together again, and we did one of my favorite swim workouts. You've probably heard me talk about this workout before if you've been following for any time. So again, this was about an hour swim. We did about 3K, and we did a main set of 18 by 100 meters. And that 18 by 100 broke down like this. We did 6 by 100 free, leaving on 135. We did 6 by 100 pull buoy, leaving on 130. And finally we did 6 by 100 pull buoy and paddles, leaving on 125. So this is one of my all-time favorite swim workouts, and when I'm getting really fit, I can either add more intervals into that set or I can decrease the send-off time. I don't have a name for this swim, but if you ever want to borrow my Dusty swim, go ahead and use it. Alright, a little later on in the day, I hopped on Zwift for some big gear, low cadence work. So I rode for an hour and 45 minutes, and I did a main set of 4 by 12 minutes at a low cadence of 55 to 65 RPM. My first two 12-minute intervals, I pushed 275 watts, and after that my heart rate wasn't getting up past zone 2, so I decided to increase my watts slightly. So for my third 12-minute interval, I did 290 watts. And then on the last one, I was feeling pretty good, so I bumped it up to 305 watts. And this was an awesome workout for me. Heart rate stayed nice and low the entire time. You can see here I had an average heart rate of 132, and max it only got up to 159. So that should be hopefully be what you're looking for when it comes to this low cadence work. And I love pushing big power with low cadence. I definitely need to work at pushing big power with a higher race tempo type cadence. But honestly, I love hill work, and I could do it all day on the bike. Got 210 watts average power for the ride, or about 240 watts normalized power. All right, Friday was my last swim of the week, and we only needed 2K to hit 15K for the week. So that's all we did. It was probably actually under an hour swim, but we got in 2K and we did what's called a lung buster set. So our main set looked like 12 by 50, 8 by 50, and 4 by 50. And each of those sets has some all-out 50s, and the ones that aren't all-out 50s, you're breathing every 5th stroke. That's why this is called the lung buster set. And if you keep watching my training week breakdowns, you'll often see a lung buster set. It's, again, another one of my favorites, and I love finishing my week with a lung buster set. All right, and after the swim, I hopped on the bike for an hour and 23 minutes. Just a pretty cruisy, easy zone 2 ride. Nothing to write home about. There were points on Friday where I was starting to get a little bit tired. Thursday as well, after that hill workout on the bike, I was supposed to do a run a little bit later on in the day, and I just didn't feel like it. So last week leading into my road race on Sunday wasn't ideal, as I had only done 2 runs. I ran on Monday, I did the hills, and on Tuesday I did the track workout, and then next time I ran was Sunday morning warming up for the race. Okay, and that leads us into Saturday. Saturday I was supposed to wake up and do an hour run. I always like running the day before a race, and I recommend that you always do as well. You don't have to run for an hour, but that's what I had planned at least. Anyways, I opted to sleep in, and after that I just never got around to my run. I figured later on in the day, at that point I was so tired that rest was going to be better for me than doing an actual pre-race day run. So I just left it and I took the day off. Alright, now we move on to Sunday, and that was when I headed up island and I did the Port Alberni 15K. Now my goal going in was I would like to hold about 320 per kilometer pace, as I have a half marathon coming up soon, and that's what I'd like to hold for that. Wasn't sure if it was going to happen out the Port Alberni 15K because it is a little bit of a hillier course. So open the file here, and yeah, over 15K, your elevation gain is over 1,000 feet, so pretty hilly course. No real long sustained climbs, but it is quite rolly. But yeah, this race went really well for me. I held 5:27 minute per mile, or about 3:20 per kilometer, so I hit my goal. I also broke the course record. Unfortunately, someone else broke the course record and they finished about 8 seconds in front of me. I had a great battle with this guy. We ran the first 12K together, and then he put in a little surge and I just couldn't answer it, and I pretty much held that gap from 12K all the way to the end of the race, and I couldn't catch him. Early on in the race, we were actually passing all of the people who started half an hour earlier, and as we were running by all of them, he would tell them good job and keep going, and I was sucking a lot of wind at that point. So it was obvious to me that he had another gear, and I knew that when he wanted to go, I more than likely wouldn't be able to answer it, but I tried to stick with him as best I could, and in the end I was happy with my effort. I only finished 8 seconds back. You can see here my heart rate average was 170, so for me that's extremely high to hold for almost an hour. But just over 15 minutes for 15K, that makes things look really good for me for 2 weeks when it's time to throw down in my half marathon. I'm hoping to possibly go under 110. And after that, I'm hoping that I have all of this run fitness banked for triathlon season, and running 114 and 113 off the bike in a 70.3 won't be a big deal, and hopefully I can run my way onto some podiums. So anyways, I hope you like my training breakdown. Today is actually Wednesday of the next week, and I am exhausted. My legs do not feel very good. They're really beat up from the race. Another thing to mention is the guy that beat me was wearing Nike 4%ers, and I've never been in a super shoe or any of these carbon plate shoes. And I'm not wondering if I would have won had I been in that shoe, but I'm wondering how I would feel now had I been in that shoe. Because a lot of people who run in these super shoes or Nike 4%ers or whatever, they often talk about how fresh their legs feel the next day. And I'm really wishing I had a pair just so that I could get back into my normal training by now. But anyways, if you like my training breakdown, give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe for more everything running, triathlon, and nutrition related.